Welcome to the About podcast. Here we explore your financial health in simple and easy to understand ways.
All right, well, welcome everybody back to the About podcast, where we try to talk about all things really personal finance related and adjacent. My name is Jeremy Scott, one of our hosts here, joined ably by Roy Hucke. Roy, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. It's really exciting to have this today and our new guest that we have with us, who you'll be introducing here in a second, and how excited they are to be here.
Yes. We always do better with guests, and I think every time we have a guest, we say that. But it's always good to bring in some people with some subject matter expertise, and sometimes it's a little esoteric. But this time we have one that I think is literally right there in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, shelter. Because we are joined today by Christina Koder, who is a real estate professional, and actually has helped us out a little bit here at the church. Helped out some other people I know, and as most of us who have gone down that path know, buying a house is not a small thing, and is oftentimes the biggest financial transaction most normal people will conduct. So, Christina, it is great to have you here to talk to us about all things real estate and kind of pitfalls and things to be aware of and all of that.
Yeah, so let me tee this up a little bit. But yes, welcome. We're excited to have you. So I've known Christina for, I don't even know now, 15 years probably? Somewhere in that range. Yeah. One of our mutual friends introduced us, and then I have had worked with Christina on some real estate transactions myself. Mm-hmm. And actually, Christina helped save me from would have been a huge error. Mm. And because of her due diligence and research, really, brought some stuff to my attention that I wasn't fully aware of, and it really changed what I was going to do. So that's kind of my experience with Christina. We've known each other a long time, and I've seen her work with folks and myself, and that's why I thought you'd be great to have on the podcast, just to share your expertise and knowledge, and we're excited to hear more about that. But one of the issues that I see is that a lot of folks that I work with in financial planning specifically have their largest asset, when I go through their net worth, is their home.
Yep.
And, the issue with that is it's an illiquid asset, and people look at it as kind of like money to them, right? Like it's real money, but you have to have a shelter, you have somewhere to live, and it's not really accessible in a normal way. And, we wanted to just kind of talk through the pitfalls of like, how do you protect it if you own one, right? Or if you're selling one, and then how do you, if you're buying one, make sure you don't get into a bad situation, right? That's kind of the high level today that I really wanted to talk through.
I do. So I think to start though, Christina, give us a little how did you get into this? Like, what were you interested in real estate? Always wanted to really loved Monopoly growing up, and thought I want to buy and sell properties. Or
that's funny you mentioned Monopoly, because
I have a deep love for Monopoly. So if you're going to talk trash about Monopoly,
no.
Okay, good.
No, I just haven't played it in so long, so I wouldn't even remember how to do it.
Oh, okay.
But the reality of how I got into real estate is. Excuse me, I was working at State Farm for 10 years, and I was out searching for a new home, and the realtor at the open house said, I think you would be a great realtor. And she went back and talked to the managing broker, and he called me to interview me, and I hadn't even had my license yet. So got a second interview with RE/MAX, and then they hired me and said, go to school and you have a job. So I quit State Farm. After 10 years, and I've been a realtor now for going on 20 years.
Oh, wow.
All in the northern Colorado area.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then you've worked all of northern Colorado. Do you only work in Colorado? Do you do anything in Wyoming? That's really close for us. How does that work?
Nope, I'm only licensed in Colorado.
Got it.
I can sell anywhere in Colorado, but it's not always the best option to sell a home or help a buyer in an area that you're not used to, or that you don't know the market, right? Mm-hmm. So if it's an area that I'm not familiar with, I refer it to another realtor in that location.
So your kind of niche is Front Range, northern Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So then that's really what you try to stick to then.
Yep.
In that regard. Okay.
Which has been a really, shall we say, dynamic real estate market in the last few years. I mean, really for probably longer than that. I mean, if you're talking 20 years, I'm like, well, it's been an interesting 20 years.
Yes, it has been. I've seen the ups and the downs.
Yeah.
When you track net worth too, for people like I do, every year we update their net worth, and when you see, their net worth is just climbing if they own a home and they haven't done anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's like, well, that doesn't happen all the time like that.
Right.
We've had an interesting few years where sometimes it could go down. Your home value does not only go up. Does it, Christina? Does it only go up?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
That's one thing that people get a misconception around.
Yep.
Yeah. I've bought and sold a couple of times now, and thankfully came out on the winning end. But that's not the case, and a lot of timing, if nothing else.
Right.
So
then where's your office?
My office is in Greeley,
Okay.
but working at RE/MAX Alliance, we have 29 offices up and down the Front Range. So I actually have access to any of them. If I'm in another location, I can go in and use
Work
the
out of there.
facilities. Yep.
Cool. That's nice. That's nice.
It's
part
very
of
nice.
having that benefit.
Yes.
Yeah. So then let's start with as a buyer, because you get a lot of people who are first-time home buyers, or you have people who are moving into Colorado all the time. It's a very desirable place to live.
Yep.
So explain that process. Like, let's just say some of our listeners have never bought a home.
Right.
Like, start from scratch. What do they need to do to kind of walk through that process?
Right. So what I do for my buyers is I have a buyer consultation with them before we even hit the road. So I bring them into the office or meet them wherever they're comfortable, and we talk about the process of buying and what that looks like. So first and foremost, I always say it's great to connect with a realtor first. You can always connect with the lender first. However, us realtors have a list of lenders that we work with consistently, we know and trust, and we can guide them to the right lender that will fit their need. So in that consultation, what I do is sit down with them and explain their first step is to get pre-approved for a loan. For two reasons. Number one, they need to know what they're comfortable in buying, price range.
Right.
I never want my people to be mortgage poor. That shouldn't be their focus. And the second thing is when we actually go out to look for homes and they want to write an offer on a house, then I have to have that pre-qualification to submit with the contract to purchase. So it's very important to have that first step is getting pre-qualified. And then I go over the steps of what it's going to take. Once we're under contract on a home, then you want to get a home inspection. Your lender will order an appraisal. And then we get the title work and we set up the closing. And then we negotiate anything that has to come through with the inspection. That's obviously we try to stay with big major items and not nitpick, but we negotiate through that. And then if we have an appraisal condition or appraisal problem, we negotiate those items as well. And then we get to closing.
So two things. One, the part about how much they can buy. So in my profession, right, I have a CFP, Certified Financial Planner, and the guidance that is given is the financial guidance is for a mortgage, you shouldn't be spending more than 28% of your gross income on the mortgage.
Right.
Right. So if you're making $100,000, then you should only spend $28,000 in total on the mortgage.
Okay.
Now, people got to remember that you have insurance, right? You have taxes that have to be considered as well. So that has to fit into the budget as well. So you can't forget about that. But all debt for the household shouldn't be above 36% of their gross income.
Right.
So your debt payments, I should say, not your actual debt, right? So, in the same example, you could only have $36,000 going out the door per year towards the actual debt payments, 28% of that going towards your actual mortgage. But when you think about it, I think that's actually extreme in my opinion, because if you're making $100,000 and you're single, right, you actually are in a pretty high tax bracket. So, after you're doing the things that you have to pay, your $100,000 just turned into, right, 80,000, 75,000.
Jeremy, the microphone isn't.
We have a
it's falling
microphone
over.
issue, so we'll make sure.
Roy, you keep talking.
Just turn the
Got
leg
it.
there and you're fine. So that piece of the debt is really important to consider if you're someone brand new out there just trying to figure out, can I buy a house? Can I afford a house? Right. Start at 28%.
Right.
And go from there. I think that's extreme though. If you went up to that, you should probably be below that.
Right. Yeah.
But honestly, try and buy in Colorado. And what kind of a mortgage are you going to get for a little over $2,000 a month in Colorado right now? Let's say northern Colorado, you're not getting a lot.
No.
Right? So now it comes down to not only the payment, but also now where are you bringing for the down payment? Right? So maybe you can afford something if you have a good enough down payment for $2,000 a month, but that's tight in northern Colorado. It's very hard to get started.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But what are you going to be paying for rent somewhere? Right? There's
Well,
brand new apartments over here down the street that are like 2-bedroom apartments at like $1,850 a month starting.
Right.
Yeah, that's a very basic apartment.
For very basic, yeah. So we just went through this. We just purchased a place when I got remarried because there were 6 people under roof and needed some more space. And it was interesting because I knew before that I was in a parsonage, so that's housing provided by the church, and I knew like anecdotally what the market was like around here and everything. And we happen to be sitting in one of the more affordable parts of the market. But that is not to say it's actually affordable.
Right.
And I mean, I said, I've done this 3 times now, and this is the biggest mortgage payment I've ever had. And we can do it. It's fine. I mean, it's not, but it is a big investment. And so you're like, well, you better choose wisely, right?
And you have to, and realistically, you have 2 full-time workers in your home that are able to afford that. And if you were by yourself, you probably couldn't do it.
Oh, no. I mean, we wouldn't need as much house either, but I mean, we would have been in something a lot smaller and maybe like a duplex or something.
And there's
like
not
that.
a lot of those houses around, to be honest with you.
Nope.
No.
So Christina, then, I talked about that debt piece of it, but, what is some of the things that people forget about, right? Like I just mentioned insurance and taxes, but that plays into the purchase too, right? So that's wrapped into what part of the loan? What's it called?
The debt to income?
No, the when you actually go and you buy it, you have to pay all those fees at the end.
Oh, closing costs?
There you go.
Yep. Okay.
So closing costs, what do they need to factor in for that? I mean, you're buying a house for $300,000, but it's not just $300,000, right? Right. So
not in Colorado.
Let's at least go 5. Maybe not even 500.
$500,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that's not just straight 500. And you just bring the 500 and you're done, right? Like you have these other fees and things. And what is it that people sometimes forget about?
Right. So the thing that most people forget and don't understand, number one, let's talk about the down payment. So you mentioned that earlier. So there's options. Most people think you have to do 20% to buy a home, and you don't. The minimum amount is 3% down, which is a conventional loan. And then we jump up to 3.5% FHA, and then 5 to 20 or plus is conventional as well. But the additional part of that is your closing costs, and your closing costs are to get the loan. So that includes your origination fee. That's how the lender gets paid, usually about 1 to 1.5% of your purchase price. Then you have an appraisal fee. That can be anywhere from $600 to $1,000. I've seen them more than that if you need a rush. Underwriting fees, and what else? You've got your 3 months of taxes and insurance for your hazardous insurance. All that is calculated into your closing costs and prepaids.
So they're prepaying the first 3 months.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So that in a $500,000 price, you're probably looking about $7,000 in closing costs and prepaids. Plus
so they need
your down payment.
$507,000. Right. I mean, that's in real dollars, right? You're actually spending that money.
Yeah.
So then their down payment, and the down payment really comes down to that cash flow piece of how much debt can I afford.
Right.
Because you might be able to put that 3% down, but you can't afford a $3,500 mortgage.
Right.
It's not realistic.
Right. Right. What else is like savings goal, right? I mean, that's the getting into that. I mean, the first house, before you have equity in anything, I mean, is usually the most challenging because that's you're scraping, you're paying rent to live somewhere. Right. And then you're also trying to save because you have some kind of down payment. You want something, even if it's just 3%. 3% of $500,000 is still a lot of money.
$15,000.
Yeah, and not everybody has $15,000 laying around. It takes time to save it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a challenge, I think, for a lot of folks.
Yeah, especially young people.
Yeah.
if you're lucky enough to have somebody help you and get with getting that down payment, that's if you had a custodial account as a kid or something, and your parents gave it to you or your grandparents gave it to you, that's a huge step up in this world that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah. Actually, when we first house I bought, my grandparents, basically, gifted us the down payment money we needed, and that was a down payment on a $140,000 house in 2001.
My first house was 120.
Yeah,
in Arizona.
Hey, I got you guys beat there.
2001, we built it.
Oh,
we built that.
Mine was a brand new build, but I didn't build it.
Yeah,
in 2001.
2001.
And what price was that?
140 in Albuquerque.
Okay.
Mine was 2004, 120 in Arizona.
Yeah.
My first house was in 1996, and it was 76,000 brand new.
Yeah.
In Greeley.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You still have it?
Nope.
Nope. Got rid of it.
Nope.
Oh, yeah. Don't talk to the older members of our
No.
congregation about it. She's like, we bought this house for $16,000. I mean,
know.
but like minimum wage was $1.25.
Right.
Right. So I
Yeah,
mean, it's like
relevant.
it's very relative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to lose perspective in that regard because
Yeah,
you're
it
just
is.
like, I forget. Okay, so then we pre-qualify people. We make sure that the numbers work, financially speaking, and we're not overextending. We're considering all the closing costs that they need to be taken into consideration, the down payment needs to be taken into consideration. And then the next thing that I know a lot of people don't maybe fully understand is that inspection piece.
Right.
Yeah.
How does that work? What do you recommend? Do you ever recommend people just kind of don't do it?
No. So it's the buyer's choice to do it, but I always recommend that they do one. So the reality of it is 2 years ago when our market was crazy after COVID, people were waiving that inspection, and now they facing problems with their home. So it can reveal anything from structural to a small electrical issue. There are ways to just negotiate the big items like I mentioned earlier, but I never recommend that you forego the inspection. But people have done it in a competitive market. We were seeing it very, very often 2 years ago. So I wouldn't recommend it, but it's been done.
So what's the craziest thing you've seen?
Show up on an inspection.
Yeah, show up that was like, nope, this is no good.
Yeah.
Foundation was a big one.
Yeah.
There was one in Windsor many, many years ago, built on a hill kind of cliff, and the foundation was falling, and you could see a 2-inch gap in between the wall and the floor.
Oh boy.
So it was kind of a big deal, but I would say that was probably my biggest.
Something like that.
Mhm.
It's not
And
crazy, but
that's a big deal.
Yeah, you can't buy the house on that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, even the Bible has something to say about strong foundations.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like that's the one. Like that's been true for 2,000 years.
Right,
Yeah, you know, I mean,
exactly.
the foundation matters.
Well, and there was a home like that over on Milliken in the Mad Russian golf course area that had, it was like basically hands off. Nobody would touch it. It had a foundation issue.
Oh yeah.
And I think finally it short sold or something. I don't know what, but it got remedied and the home got sold. But it was a really beautiful home too.
Yeah.
On a golf course.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how the one I was
I
just
mean,
speaking about was.
Oh,
Things
yeah.
happen.
Beautiful.
I mean, especially when things are built, around here,
Mhm.
people get things built quick and,
Yep.
I mean, and yeah, I mean, and, or unexpected things. We just had a situation with a friend of ours who, bought a house, nobody ever told them that, they filled in the drainage ditch.
Oh.
They filled in the retention pond in order to build these houses. And they ended up, honestly, they flooded and the city had to buy them back.
Yep.
But nobody. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Just things that happen. Weird things happen.
So inspections are really important. Just
Inspections
kinda
important.
Look in every nook and cranny and
Yes.
make sure it's in good shape.
Yep.
Well, and it's a negotiating thing
It
too.
is.
Like we ran into that because I mean, we our inspection we bought our house didn't really reveal much except the roof was original and was going to have be replaced at some time and everything. And then you can go back and say, I now have a piece of paper that says it's not just my opinion as an uneducated, person who doesn't know anything about roofs. I got an educated opinion now that says this roof is going to have to be replaced in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And you can go back and say, okay, well, I want a little something for that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
Put a roof on it, which they didn't want to do, or, we want a little discount.
Right. Yeah. One thing that is really important is the roof. Let me talk about that. When we have hailstorms in Colorado, as we do, a lot of people do not get their roofs fixed. They just take that money. Unfortunately, they think they're going to be there forever, and then life happens and they have to sell. If they didn't replace that roof with that insurance money, it's going to come up on the home inspection, and it's going to be an issue for the buyer to get insurance when they purchase the home.
So they have to do the roof before they sell it.
Yep. So I've unfortunately been in that position with some sellers who have taken the money, spent it elsewhere, didn't replace their roof, and now we have to replace the roof before closing. So then in that situation, it has to come out of the seller's proceeds at closing, so they get less money when they close the home.
Right.
So it's very important. It's also important to file a claim when it happens. Like 2019, I think, was our most recent hailstorm in Weld County, and people didn't file a claim, and now it's 2-3 years later. The insurance companies won't pay.
Yeah. Oh, we had a big one last spring.
Yeah.
I mean, there was all up and down. There were roof signs all up and down.
All my neighbors got their roofs fixed, and my insurance said no.
Yeah.
How about that?
Maybe get another opinion.
Yeah. Ours was fine, and I was really grateful for it because we had literally bought the house 5 days before.
Oh, yeah.
It was 5 days after we closed on the house that the hailstorm came through, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
But ours was okay.
Good.
Yeah, those are actually going up a lot. I mean, insurance is actually be a big part of this home purchase because I'm seeing people putting like 1% on roofing type stuff, right? 1% of home value type things. Like your deductible is that much.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to pay 1% towards that new roof of the home value.
Oh, we had to make a pretty decent decision around that because because of the age of the roof, nobody really wanted to touch it, or the things were extreme. So, our coverage on our roof is fairly minimal. The rest of the house is covered fine, but it was literally thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, but those are the kind of decisions you have to make in this.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to do some math and go, okay, I can spend extra thousands of dollars a year, and then if there happens to be a hailstorm, which is not an unlikely thing, then maybe my roof gets covered and I get it replaced. Or I can not spend them. I can not spend that on insurance, but then I can save it. I mean, there's some juggling you have to do, but then you have to have the discipline to actually save the money.
So Christina, they buy the home, and they can afford the payment, right? And that's just fixed forever, right?
Nope.
Oh, what is it we have to worry about?
What?
Taxes and insurance.
There you go.
That happened this year.
Well, and people have to pay attention to that, really.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of my mortgage went up $500 from my insurance.
When you say mortgage, you actually mean your escrow.
Yeah, my escrow.
Held by your mortgage company. Okay.
Yes.
Just to be clear so everybody knows. Your mortgage didn't actually change. It is fixed on the mortgage number, but the escrow is different.
Right.
Escrow is just the gathering of the money. So for those that don't know, it's just the gathering of the money for the taxes and the insurance, and they make sure that gets paid. But if it's looking like to be a shortfall, you get an increase in your technically your mortgage payment because it's all kind of bundled together.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you can pay the shortfall in a chunk and not have the payment change.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course around here we have every couple of years they do the assessed value changes, so that changes your tax.
Yeah.
So it just change.
Well, and I actually my home insurance I got hit with a 54% increase on my home insurance this year.
Yep,
right?
Everybody did.
Yeah, so it's starting to price people out in regards to like if you're brand new trying to buy, you're seeing those numbers up front. But if you already are in something and things are tight, it just got worse. And anyway, so people just need to be aware of that. So home buying is a really cool thing. It's really awesome to be a homeowner, but you're not just making those payments because now we have to do upkeep and we have to mow the lawn and we have to pay for water and we have to, like all those things that are part of that are now your responsibility. And if your irrigation system in your lawn has a leak, you have to pay the bill. You can't just not pay the bill. Oh, I didn't know that the town doesn't care.
No.
Right. So just be aware that everybody that those are as a first time home buyer really things you got to think through and make sure that those numbers work on your behalf and can put you in the right direction. Anything else on buying that we need to really consider?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that everything?
Well, I do think, I would say the one thing too is just make sure that you are sitting down and being somewhat dispassionate about it. Because I think it's really easy to fall in love with a place.
It is.
Because you're looking at this, looking at all these houses and you find a place you fall in love with. And I've done this when we bought our house in Billings. We're like, this is the top most we want to spend on a house. And then we saw one that was just a little bit more, right? And it was fine. But it was just like, but we kind of fell in love with it. We're like, oh, this is perfect in so many ways. And it wasn't necessarily maybe the most rational decision, but you kind of, and I think you should love your home. Like you should want to come home. It should feel good and that kind of stuff. But I think it's easy to let kind of your thoughts and your feelings and your ideas about a place kind of let you kind of creep you up outside of maybe where rationally you maybe want to be.
That sounds really familiar. Have you heard that somewhere before?
I've heard of it a couple times. So
separating people from their emotion. That's really important.
It is.
And that's why you use professionals. And Christina's not going to be emotional about this purchase.
No.
Compared to you. because it's
Right.
your dream home, and you can see yourself sitting in the living room drinking coffee on a snowy day with this big window and blah blah blah.
Kind of like the one I saved him from.
Yeah.
Well,
It was picturesque. Let
It
me
was.
tell you.
we had. I mean, we actually end up buying the house, but we went to see it, and I went through the kitchen real quick, and I left, and Emily, my wife, was like, "Don't you want to spend a little more time in the kitchen?" And like, no, if I spend any more time in the kitchen, we're buying this house.
Yeah.
Because I love this kitchen, and I'm like, I don't need to see anymore. I already know I love it. It's fine. I'm gonna go look at the rest of the house. Moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One
Okay.
thing I do want to point out, sorry
Sure.
to interrupt you. As a buyer, a big thing you need to consider is long-term and what the neighborhood is. So long-term for yourself and your family, if you expect to grow in a family, is that home going to fit you? And then the other thing to think of is your resale value in the neighborhood. And that's important to a lot of people based on location and what's happening in the neighborhood, right? So as realtors, we cannot steer clients in a direction of a neighborhood. We cannot advise in that respect. So they need to do their own due diligence and really research a neighborhood or any thoughts that they may have about it. We cannot help them with that decision.
Speaking of the neighborhood piece of that, then do you get like, if you get a young family and they got kids that are going to be going to school, do you get, well, how's the school system here? How's the medical system here and the hospital system and, some of those things? Do you get those questions, and how do you guide them around those things and educate them?
We do get those questions, and most parents will do their own research with their schools before they shop in an area, in a neighborhood, in a town. So there's not a lot that I can tell them where to go with that respect. Again, that's steering, and we can't do that. We can't say, this school's the best school versus that's a terrible school. We can't do that as a realtor.
Can you say what you've heard from people, or you just stay neutral and vanilla?
Stay neutral.
Yeah. That's probably good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it is a big deal. I mean, if you have kids involved, figuring out what the school district is, and honestly, here we've had a lot of changes in the school district and boundaries and who's going to what school and all that kind of stuff. And when I was on the school board, we had some pretty upset parents that were like, "Well, I didn't know you were changing the boundary," and I'm like, "Well, we announced it 2 years ago. We were changing the boundary, but okay, sorry."
Yeah.
But people get that they care. They're like, I bought this house to be in this district or in this school.
Jeremy's biased because he used to be on the school
I
board.
used to be on the school board. A little bit biased. But
Johnstown had a big move recently with schools.
We got several of them.
Oh, they have amazing schools here. I'll
Oh
tell
my gosh.
you what, their high school, their middle school. Oh my goodness.
Have you been to the middle school?
And their new elementary school? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I have not been in the new middle school.
Oh, you got to go check
I'm
it
going here later this month or early next month.
Okay.
Okay, so buyers, I think we kind of covered
Yep.
it. Things to think, things to consider. And then as you're a seller, right? What are some of the things that we need to consider? Here's one of the experiences I've had with some of my clients, right? So they want to sell their home. They're like, "Yeah, Roy, I think I'm going to sell it for X." And I'm like, are you sure you're going to get X? They're not, my whole point of this is they're not very connected to reality on what their home's really worth. And they think they're going to get more than maybe they should.
But I heard that one down the street sold, and my house is at least as
that's
nice
exactly
as the one
the
down
case.
the street. And I heard they got $1 bajillion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
That's very
always
common.
about, your home is only worth what someone's willing to pay you.
It's not worth what Zillow says it is.
No.
No.
Doesn't Zillow tells it, right?
No.
Isn't
Christina
that how-
loves Zillow because I
It's my
throw it at her all the
nemesis.
time.
All the time.
So, okay. So helping them have a fresh perspective, again, separate the emotion from like, this is my home and I cared for it and my memories are here and it's worth this. Well, it's worth that to you.
Right.
But what is it worth on the open market? So what do you go through with people to kind of help them if someone's wanting to sell their home?
Right. So again, we do a consultation, but the biggest thing, part of listing your home, is figuring out the price. I do it very similar to an appraiser. So I look at the subject property, your home, that I'm going to be selling, and I pull comps in the neighborhood, stay within the neighborhood if I can, and compare it to the style, ranch, 2-story, tri-level, bi-level, whatever. And then I make necessary adjustments to that property to get you closest to the appraised value that I think it's going to come out to at the end of the day when we get the appraisal. So a seller should never, but you always can, but it's not worth the seller to order an appraisal before listing the property. That's what you rely on the realtor to do as a marketing analysis, because the buyer has to get their own appraisal. So if you get one before we list your house because you don't agree with my analysis, the lender has to get their own, and then your appraisal won't even come into play with the lender.
Well, and I think that's really important too, because that's a bit fluid, right? So, for instance, in the last few years, what have we seen? Rates have gone up, right? So, if you got that appraisal pre-rates going up, it's worth one thing, and then post-rates going up, it's worth another. Why? Well, it's affordability.
Right.
People can't pay that number.
Right.
They don't have the money to do it.
Right.
So it's all about the cash flow at that point, the payment plan.
Yeah. When we bought, it was a really great time on price to buy because prices were held and pretty safe, not coming down a little bit. But on interest rate, it was a terrible time to buy.
Yes.
Yes,
The
cross your
last year.
finger for them to go down.
Well, but
I don't think they will.
No, but we didn't. You talked about me in house
Quickly,
poor. I mean,
yeah.
that's one. The other thing on the buying side is we were like, we made no guesses. Like if interest rates come down and we can refinance and make extra payments, fantastic.
Right.
Who doesn't love more money in their pocket? Not counting on it, not budgeting it, not if it stays the way that it is forever, we will be fine.
That's a great point. And I actually had a friend reach out to me recently and kind of asked me about some of this questions. I said, well, the one thing that you got to do is if you're going to buy something, buy it with the understanding that if that's the payment you have for the rest of the mortgage, that you can afford it.
Right.
Don't buy it with the understanding or the hope that it's going to go down in the next few years. Maybe it will and you can refinance. Great. But if it doesn't, you know you can afford it at this level.
Well, I mean, we saw that like back in like 2006, 2007 with all these like, 3-year ARMs. It's this low rate for 3 years and then it adjusts and suddenly you can't afford your house. I mean, it's things like that. I mean, that didn't work out well.
Right. That was a contributor to the market crashing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I would not make any bets on what the stock market's going to do or what interest rates are going to do.
Yeah. They're going to do what they're going to do. And you have to make a decision with the facts in front of you and know that in a worst case, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I always approach it like that. Worst case, am I okay? And if you can afford it, then it's good to move forward. If you can't, you're probably overextending.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So being realistic about price, working with your real estate agent to get that fair, a realistic market value that may not, probably isn't going to be as much as you want. Because, we all probably want more.
Yes. I was just going to say that every homeowner wants more money, and that happened a couple years ago. A lot of homeowners today think that their house is still worth what it was 2 years ago, and it's not.
Yeah, it's come down.
And it's important to price it correctly because if you don't, you're going to sit on the market and you're going to chase the market. And that's not, it doesn't look good. Your home gets stigmatized at that point.
Well, and then you see on Zillow, on the market, off the market, on the market, off the market, people do that little game where they're I'm trying to get maximum. They're not going to give me my number. I'm going to take it off.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, that's all. And now we know. I mean, that's the one thing, there's a lot more transparency. You probably knew, because you have access to the systems, but now everybody does. So yeah, you can go and you're like, oh, they listed it and then they dropped, and then they came off the market and then they listed it for $25,000 less.
Yep.
And then they came off the market.
Yeah.
You're just like, what's wrong with this house?
Yes, it gets stigmatized, right?
I mean, as a buyer, that's what you start thinking.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you talk about what is it actually worth, give them some reality. Have you ever had to walk away from somebody because they were just like, no, it's worth this? Or do you just list it at their price and then deal with the the ramifications of nobody's going to look at it or make an offer and then in a week or two you drop it?
Yeah. I have walked away from a seller before because he wouldn't accept 3 offers I gave him. But regarding price, I have not. Usually I try to get the seller to say, okay, we're going to try the market for 2 to 3 weeks. And after 2 to 3 weeks, if we're getting negative feedback or no showings, then we have to drop the price. Price, condition, and location are the 3 things that will sell your home. And if you have great condition, you have a great location, you're just overpriced. That's the only thing that we can change to get more showings and potential offers, right? So I usually try to have that conversation with them. I do have that conversation with them up front. We need to really consider a price reduction if we're not moving. And then I put it in a listing contract in the beginning so we don't have to amend the contract.
Got it.
So on the condition thing, I think that's one of the things I'm curious. I think there's what people think adds value to their homes and what actually adds value to the home, which is probably far less than what we think.
Yes.
Are there some kind of common things that, on both sides, are there common things that actually that people think or hope add value to their homes that don't really? Or are there other things that really do add value that maybe we're not thinking of?
I've heard a bright orange room adds way value.
Brown, yeah, bright orange, and maybe some blue accents.
Yeah. No, that
The Broncos
doesn't work.
room are not a really big deal. They're
No.
not really a great value add.
Paint does not add value. It helps the home show better, but it doesn't add value. One misconception right now is solar.
Oh,
Solar is a big thing because people want to be energy efficient. But
Right.
what they don't realize is the cost to install those things are very expensive, 20 to 40 grand.
Mhm.
They have a monthly payment, and what they're saving isn't catching up. And then they have a life event. They have to move. Well, if you move in 2 years after installing a solar, which is very common, 2 to 5 years, that solar system isn't paid off. So you've got two options as a homeowner. You either pay it off at closing, or the buyer has to take over the lease, which means the buyer has to also qualify debt to income for that solar payment.
Mm-hmm.
And the buyer has to want it, right? And a lot of people don't. So it's a very tough thing, and it does not add value to your home. It's a personal property.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't add value to your home, unfortunately.
We literally looked at two houses. They were the same house. Like they were built, same builder, same floor plan, everything. Upstairs to downstairs there's a difference in the basements. But one of the decided, there was several factors, but one of them is the other one had solar, and it was it was a lease. It wasn't a purchase. It was one of those kind
goes
of
forever.
Yeah, and you had to take the lease, and it was and the lease payment was going up, but it wasn't like there's no way it was making enough electricity, and it was just a bad deal.
Yeah.
And we're like, if they'll and the only option they had was the buyer could have, or the seller could have prepaid the whole lease,
right?
For us, and then but we still were stuck with them, and they were still going to come take them away in 10 years or whatever when the lease was up. And I'm like, this is stupid. Like, I don't even want to deal with this.
Yeah.
That's a great point, though. Solar is a big deal right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something you can just say, okay, I'm taking it with me.
Right.
Right.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it doesn't quite work like that. It's literally attached to your house.
So if you're considering solar, they have incentive programs out there and whatnot that I think are attractive to people. But if you're considering solar, you kind of probably have to consider, how long am I going to be in this house?
Absolutely.
Right.
And then if they have questions around the math around things or the value of things, maybe they need to talk to someone like you to get some perspective.
Right.
If it's I mean, solar's been around long enough that I'm sure people are starting to have systems that are paid off. If it's a paid off system, does it add value, or is it still just not nice to have?
It depends on how long the system has been running, because they also need to be replaced usually in 10 years, which is another thing you have to consider, is you just get done paying for it if it's on a lease in 10 years, and then you have to replace the solar because it's outdated. So I've never seen it be cost effective for a homeowner,
Okay.
Well,
either length or short term.
another thing, I actually ran into this where I tried to refinance my house, and technically the solar company has a lien on your home.
Yep. They do.
Right. So I tried to refinance my home, and the mortgage company's like, well, we can't refinance this with that on there. Like, they won't let that lien sit there. Like, you have to pay that off.
That's interesting.
So that was a specific bank, right?
Yeah.
But it was a great, like, it was 2.5% rate. So I'm like, what do I need to do?
Right. How do we make this work?
But that was one of the unique things that I was surprised by. So if somebody's buying a home now and they have solar, or they're adding solar and they want to refinance, they need to consider how is that going to be taken into the equation? Will the lender allow that lien to be on that home as well?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just part of the due diligence. Do the math. I mean, we just put solar on the church, and I'm actually kind of a big believer in it. I think it's good, but maybe not from a dollars and cents perspective.
We also got a smoking deal on that.
We did.
I mean, if you got that deal for everybody, they would all say the same thing. Take it.
Yeah.
But if we're paying full price, not as good of a deal.
No, not quite as good. But
Also, the church is going to be here for a
yeah,
long
we're
time.
not going anywhere. We're gonna
that's
use
not a bad
every
deal.
ounce of that thing.
I think it'll just help protect against hail.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what happens when a hailstorm comes? The
What?
solar company has to come take those panels off,
Oh yeah.
and then the roofers have to come put them.
Qualified person has
Yeah.
to do it, but usually that's part of the price of the
roof job.
whatever, which actually has added cost to it too, right?
Okay, so solar, that's one of those things that probably doesn't add value in the way that people think it does, or really at all. And it actually can be an encumbrance. When my wife, when she sold her place, they had a 2-year-old solar system on it, and it was kind of a challenge to figure out how we got it done, but it required writing some big checks.
Yeah.
So to get that taken care of. So are there other things that either do or people think add value that don't, or things that do add value So I'm a homeowner, say I'm a homeowner, and I am. And my perspective, I'm going to be in this place for 5 years.
Okay.
And when I get done, I want to make sure I can get, maximum value for it. Other than taking care of it, are there things that that I could do in that time that would add value?
Things that you could do. Do you have a finished basement?
I do now.
Okay. Did you do it after purchase?
Yes.
Okay. So that adds value.
Yeah.
But you will not get 100% value for your basement.
Right.
Yeah, you get about half value from above grade than you do in the basement, price-wise. So, for example, if above grade is $55 a square foot, you're going to get about $25 a square foot for a finished basement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is crazy.
So when you're getting quotes, don't go over that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to go over that,
Yeah,
but unfortunately.
Yeah.
So to help your home sell, and it's going to add value, yes, but it's not going to add 100% of what you spent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we needed the room.
Yeah.
We had 4 kids to put in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what if a client of mine had a bathroom and a kitchen and a master bath that they were looking at kind of making it look nicer, right? So they were considering doing some basic things like, countertops.
Absolutely.
Maybe some tile work, that kind of stuff. Those are value adds.
Yes.
If it's a higher grade countertop or whatever,
Yes.
you're going to get some value out of that.
Yeah, your finishes in your home throughout will add value to your home. If you have a laminate floor versus a tile floor or a hardwood floor, it's going to make a difference. If you have a laminate countertop versus granite or quartz, it adds value. All those things add value to the home in respect to that. Your finishes throughout the house.
So if you were going to do like an upgrade on a bathroom and the other ones are different and they're not as good, do they really, to add the most value to your home, you should probably do all of them the same?
No.
Or just, of the same quality,
Right.
Right,
it would
so
be great if you can add
if you have a
all of them.
laminate in one bathroom and you have granite in the other bathroom, you're going to get more value by having them all uniform and looking at the same quality.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
That's always something I kind of get talked to with people on spending money on remodels and things like that. Right. Where can you add the most bang for your buck, right? Well, the cabinetry is nice. Why maybe just paint it and put a new top on it, right? New hardware, new top, and try and get more bang for your buck by doing that or something like that.
Appliances are important too in the kitchen. Stainless or black stainless versus white, things like that are going to add value.
Yeah.
What about like a microwave where you can push a button on the thing that says door and it opens?
Don't they all do that?
Microwave does this, by the way. It's kind of funny.
It opens itself?
Yeah. So it actually is. So it's like a glass touch pad, if you will, has a button that says door. And I've had this installed now for a month or something. And if you push it, it actually opens. The microwave opens.
How were you opening your microwave before?
Well, it has a handle on the bottom where you can actually pull it open.
Oh, okay.
Right. But it has a button too.
I didn't know that.
I'm sure that's a value add.
That's fancy.
It's gotta be.
Yeah.
Is this at the office?
No, this is at my house.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
So any other little pieces of things to consider when you're selling your home? Which, by the way, just full disclosure too for people that Christina did put my color palette together at my office location.
It looks very nice.
It does look very nice. I get tons of compliments on it, and of course, I let her guide me, but I made the decisions. Right. That's how
He
it
had
works.
to. He's the owner. We have to make him happy.
Drove her nuts, I'm sure. But anyways, she's really good at making things look nice and
thank you.
color coordinated in a way that is very appealing.
Also, your basement.
Yeah, you did help me with that too.
Yeah.
You did help me with that too.
Yep.
All right. So for sellers, other pitfalls or things that, to be aware of beyond like price and finishes and
Make sure that you declutter the home before photos are taken. And obviously make sure your realtor hires a professional photographer is important. So you want to declutter and depersonalize your house as much as you can. Buyers want to come in and see themselves in the home. They don't want to see the person that currently lives there. They don't want to see their photos, family photos and things like that. They want to envision themselves. And having the home professionally cleaned is also important. Carpets cleaned if you can. It'll just help the home show better and probably get a quicker offer.
Now, a question for you on this one. This is really important to me.
Okay.
Very near to my heart.
Okay.
What about smell?
Oh, it's a thing.
Should you have freshly baked cookie smell in the air
Yes.
when people come in?
Yes.
Those kind of
Always.
things.
how about just not smell like cats?
Or dogs.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
When we looked at homes back in the day, we looked at we were looking for homes in Albuquerque. There was a couple we went into, and I'm like, I don't know what these cats have done here, but we just almost walked right back out again. We're like, nope.
Yeah. Yes. And it's hard to tell a seller.
I'm sorry, your house smells.
I know. It's a tough conversation.
Your home smells like urine, and we need to address it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to address. It depends on where it's coming from.
Yeah, it's like, are we actually replacing carpet and pulling out padding and all that stuff,
or
right?
wood. I have a house that I had listed for 5 months in 2024 and overpriced. Listed it overpriced. Got an offer at where I thought it was supposed to be sold at, the sell price. Didn't go through, and took it off the market, and he did some TLC that needed to be done, and we're going to list it again. And I walked in yesterday, and there's still dog smell, and I don't know where it's at.
Yeah.
It's either in the carpet or is wood, but it's hard to address.
Either way, it's a problem.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
And you can't cover that up. Like, somebody can't be buying a home that smells like that and not know it.
Well, and I'd imagine, probably less so anymore, but even like smoking.
Oh.
When everybody smoked, I'm sure it wasn't a big deal. Like, nobody could smell anyway, and everything smelled like smoke. But now we live in a world where that's not true.
Right.
And so that's.
Yeah.
So decluttering, how about this? What's the best time of year to sell a home?
Anytime. No.
Of course, a realtor would say that.
Anytime.
Right?
Anytime. Let's take it. No. Honestly, the best time is spring and summer because landscaping is growing and flourishing. Your curb appeal is better than the winter. People don't like to move in the winter. And after school starts, believe it or not, families don't move. So our market shifts after school starts.
Totally believe that.
And then Colorado, you get winter and holidays, and then it just gets slower naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Not every year. Depends on the market. But spring and summer is the best because everything looks great and green.
So question for you then on the personal side of things. Okay, so you're a realtor, the professional life of selling homes and buying homes. What, you can't work with everybody. So people that hear this, what should they look for in a realtor? Because that's a big part of this equation, right? That we haven't really talked about yet is that that can make or break stuff.
Right. It's experience, I think. And, the years of experience is really important because having that many years or multiple years, in the business, you've seen everything. You've had to deal with different things in every avenue of the transaction, right? So that is truly important is experience and their production. I can have 20 years of experience, but if I only sold 20 homes in 20 years, that doesn't give me the knowledge and the expertise to guide people.
How do people know that, though? Do they just have to ask and have to trust that they're telling them the truth? And they said, I sold 50 homes this year, and they actually sold 2?
Well, there's ways to look it up. At RE/MAX, we have levels of awards, and so anybody can look that up if they want to. Plus, our bios are on our websites, and we usually say what we've accomplished so that a buyer is comfortable coming to me because of every level of award I've achieved through the years.
So then why would somebody want to use a big broker like RE/MAX, right? Great name out there, but you could use a mom and pop.
Sure.
Right. So what's the pro or con of those? Because there's good and bad to both of them.
Sure.
Right. So what do they need to watch out for there?
Yeah. Well, with RE/MAX, honestly, I've been with them all my career. And the reason why is because they are worldwide. We get a lot of networking from that, believe it or not. I can look up a realtor in China if you wanted to move there and refer you somebody who's got experience, who's achieved those awards and would fit your personality. I can do that research for you and then give you a couple of options and then you can interview them, right? So that's a great thing with RE/MAX in addition to not only RE/MAX Alliance, because they're all independently owned, right? And we have 29 offices up and down the Front Range, but we network within that. But then what RE/MAX offers to us as far as our marketing is unreal. So with our fees that we pay as realtors, we get a lot of marketing and help with our websites and everything like that is included. Versus a mom and pop, you have to pay for that. You have to have somebody else come and do that for you. You have to keep up with all your social, all those things. And RE/MAX offers a lot of those avenues for us.
So equally good and bad. It's just what pain points you want to have.
Yeah,
One, as a realtor actually doing the work, and then two, as a consumer coming to you and looking at it. Honestly, just to be honest with you, I've never considered that you work for RE/MAX as the reason I'm working with you.
I know.
Ever. Like, I don't care.
You just know me.
Right? I actually care more about the person than I do about the actual company.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, and I had never purchased in Colorado. Emily had, and so I mean, she was very insistent. Like, this is the real. I mean, I bought 2 homes with this one couple, and that's who's doing it. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
And they sold her house and they helped us buy this one, and they're more of an independent kind of thing. But if I could definitely see the advantage, especially if you're relocating to somewhere you've never been before, like, and have to both buy and sell. Working with a larger organization that would have people on both ends of that transaction, that seems like that'd be some pretty strong advantages on that one.
It is. Yes.
Yeah. And that happens. People get transferred for work or, whatever. I mean, you can end up in a situation where you're moving somewhere you're not planning to go.
Right. Yeah, and you usually go to the person you know, like, and trust, right? And so most people do not go to a realtor because of where they work. And so many people have known me for so long, and they say, "You work at RE/MAX, right?" Yes, still.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Well, okay, so I think we've talked a lot about the buying, the selling, picking a realtor. Is there any other pieces of the real estate world we need to address? It's pretty. I mean, do you do commercial real estate?
Only for you.
That's Roy gets a lot of people to do things.
He does.
He's really good at it.
He does.
I try to be a charmer.
There you go.
we went all over with Roy. We were looking for houses to put his business in.
Yep.
And then
yes, Christina was on my roller coaster ride.
Oh yeah, through that one place that would have been really close to me.
Would have been.
I could have thrown a rock. I could have walked right into your backyard.
You could have.
Yeah. But
could have also been on a very busy road.
Yes, busy road.
Yep. Well, and that's even more so than the other property we were looking at. That was the one that, like, I was committed to that one, but we ended up getting out of it because of things that were coming that we didn't realize, and we couldn't commit to it, so we got out of the contract.
Well, and I think that's something that, again, real estate agent who knows what's going on, knows the neighborhood, knows what's coming. I mean, when everybody comes to visit our house, we back this open space, and like inevitably they'll ask, what's happening to that space back there? And I'm like, well, it's owned by the town and it's part of their open space plan. So as far as we know, unless they sell it, then it should stay there.
Yeah.
But you don't know. I mean, who owns it? I mean, you've got a little bit of that, the property behind you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen there. And it was, I'm not saying that it helped. It put another box check in the favor of that box to go, I liked having the open space, and I like that it's hopefully, you would hope, going to stay that way, at least as long as we're there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But you never know.
You don't. Well, the school district could have put a school on it, but we didn't.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, like, we for school district, when we built a new school on a piece of property that had been dedicated. That's what it was for. We weren't ever sure we were going to buy, and we got nasty grams from homeowners saying, "You're going to build a school, right? You're going to take my view of the mountains away," and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that property's been there, and it's had future school site on it when you bought that house.
Yes.
Like but people get attached to those things, and and then now there's traffic in front of it and everything. And I think it's all worked out well, but but hopefully, like their real estate agent disclosed to them that, or somebody did, that there might be a school there someday.
Right. Yep.
Well,
I've seen it where it's been the opposite, where it was promised that nothing would be built behind it, and then something got built behind the house that was sold by a realtor, and then threatened lawsuits.
Oh
yeah, it can happen.
Oh, okay.
So a realtor should never promise.
Yeah.
Oh, that's always going to be open space.
Right.
Because you don't know.
Yeah. In our case, they had a letter from the town that basically says, yes, we own it. Here's our intentions. And that's the best anybody could give us. Which is like, that's fine.
Yep.
But I wouldn't have known to ask for that. I wouldn't have known to go there.
Yeah.
But I think the selling agent had done that because that's always a question people ask.
Absolutely.
Is there going to be 5 stories of apartments behind me?
A couple last questions. What about representing 2 different people on both sides of the sale?
Ooh,
buyer and seller?
good question.
Can you do that
Absolutely.
What's the problem with that?
Okay.
If there is any, or what are the pros of that?
Yeah. Good question. So if you and I enter into a contract and I'm your seller's agent, I list your home for sale, and a buyer comes along and they're not represented by a buyer's agent, I can switch over to be a transaction broker, which means I walk the line for both of you. I can't advise you, and I can't advise the buyer, which is tough.
But I get a big discount because of that then, right?
No. Well, maybe.
It's negotiable.
It's negotiable. Yes, the real estate commissions are always negotiable, FYI.
Yeah, I don't think people know that.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, that it's there is room to there's room to negotiate. We did.
It depends on the market too, right? If you want a pro and they're not readily available, you might have to pay a little bit more.
Right.
If there's a lot of people out there trying to work and it's a little less busy, well, you might be able to get a little bit better rate.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
That's just the way of the world.
I think it's always worth asking the question people don't want to ask.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I'm like, well, you can't. The worst they're gonna say is no.
Right.
And it's like,
Yeah. But you also got to realize we work on commission only, right? I go to work every single day, but it doesn't mean I'm getting paid.
Right.
So if that one commission it has been my only commission, my only income for 5 months, we also need to live too. And we have retirement and all the things we have to contribute to as well. But to keep going on your question, if a realtor switches over to a transaction broker, you just walk the line and get the deal done. There's no advising either party. However, the other option is I can maintain you as a seller's agent. I would be your seller's agent. And then the buyer is a client or a customer. And so they have zero representation from me, which is the way I explain it. It's like going to court without an attorney. You know, and that's the same as homeowners wanting to for sale by owner their home is they don't have the guidance or the legal law of the contracts. They don't have any of that knowledge. And so that's why it's best to hire a realtor to guide them through the whole process. But it's just, it can be done. It's tricky, but it can be done. It's just there's not the representation or advocacy.
So then other question I have, do you have any questions off that?
No.
Okay. Other question I have, because I know we're kind of getting to the end here. So somebody has multiple properties, right? Non-primary residence, they're going to sell it though, and has some gains. And I've heard of this thing called a 1031. What is that?
What do you know about that? A 1031 is when you have an investment property and you have gains on it, you have to, a 1031 will allow you to buy the next property without paying tax on your gains. But you have to increase the purchase price from the sale price of what you're leaving, the departing residence, and you have to name it in 45 days and close in 90. So it's a quick process.
So if I have a house, it has to be like property, right? Is that right?
Above. It has to be.
Or higher.
Yep,
Okay,
or
like
above.
or higher. So if I have a bare piece of land, I could buy a more expensive piece of land, or I could buy a house.
Yes.
At the, okay.
You can also buy water shares.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You don't have to buy real estate. There are certain things that you can buy, and one of them is water shares. But you can't just go buy a new Tesla.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Sorry.
People like Teslas. Anyways, no bias here. So, okay. So then if somebody sells a property for $500,000, right, regardless, and it's debt free or whatever, and they're walking away with $500,000, there's a portion of that could be taxable if it's not their primary residence.
Right.
So whatever that amount is, doesn't matter. For this example, it just means that amount doesn't have to be paid taxes on. They can put it into this new property. All of those dollars go towards the purchase of the new property. So there's no reduction in dollars being used to purchase.
Correct.
But that tax still goes with that property. So if they sell that in the future, that's still something that they could have to pay in the future.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
But it's a way that they could continue to own property and not have to realize gains, essentially, not pay the tax man.
Today.
It's dollars today. Yeah.
Yep.
And then...
So it's like a reinvestment strategy.
It
So
is.
you basically take it, you can then reinvest it within that window, and then avoid the taxes for then. And then when you ultimately liquidate,
Yep.
And or you live in it.
A lot of time you can't live in it.
Right.
Yeah, there's some restrictions there. You might be able to. I'm not going to say can't, but there's some restrictions that exist around that. But a lot of people that do this, they get into this we call it kind of like a death spiral of I can't get out of it because the gains become too big, right? And you're like, oh my God, I'm stuck in this thing. So a lot of people will use it as a way that they can potentially pass wealth on to the next generation. Because if they do, the property gets to step up in cost basis at death. So all of those gains that you were avoiding paying to your surviving heirs, they get a step up in cost basis. They don't have any taxes to pay either.
Oh, okay.
So it's really efficient in that regard. And that's the way the law is today. It could change. But that's just something that people need to be aware of. I know in the real estate world, and we're just dabbling here. People, like, it goes way deeper than this, but that's another probably conversation of real estate investing for the purpose of building wealth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they should talk to an accountant for sure.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast.
You got to have your attorney, you got to have your accountant, you got to have your financial planner.
I don't think we've had a guest on where we haven't thought of like 4 different follow-up podcasts during recording the one with the guest.
It's true. There's more to come.
There's way more to come.
So if people do have questions, they can always submit those questions, and if there's enough interest, we'll actually have Christina back and maybe even do a Q&A and put you on the spot.
Right. Okay. So if somebody's in the Front Range of Colorado, Christina, they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do it?
Call me or text me at 970-405-8385.
Nice. And we'll put that in the description as well. So all your contact
information. Do you have a website or anything either?
Yes. CoderKnowsRealEstate.com.
CoderKnowsRealEstate.com. That's pretty easy.
That's pretty good. I like that. That's a good one. So.
You do know real estate pretty good.
All right. Well, as always, I learned a ton, even though I'm like, I just did this and I'm like, oh, crap. Should have done it. But that's all right. It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah. It worked out.
Yeah, it did. Well, Christina, thanks for joining us. This is great.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
It was fun.
It wasn't as scary as you thought?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
We knew you were excited. It was going to end well.
We're good. So, all right. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for joining us again on the About Podcast. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends if you're in the market or you know somebody's in the market for maybe doing a home purchase or sale anytime soon. Maybe pass this episode along to them and give them that little gift of knowledge and education. And of course, reach out to Christine if you got any questions. So, all right. Well, this has been great. Thank you, Roy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
CWA is a Securities and Exchange Registered Investment Advisor. No content contained herein should be construed as an offer for investment advice or an offer for the purchase or sale of any security, insurance, or other investment product. Investments involve the risk of low loss, including loss of principal. Please consult with a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before implementing any strategy presented here. Data presented here are obtained from believed reliable sources but cannot be guaranteed as to completeness or accuracy.